Line College Football Edition, September 7th, week 2 of college football, big slate of games. We got the panel in the house. DJ Big Boss from the state of California. Welcome in, man. Happy Saturday to you. Good morning.
What up, though, y'all? It is week 2 college football, and guess what, y'all? I'm excited again. Did pretty good last week. I'm 1-1 going into since yesterday's games, and I'm excited to get together with you guys this morning and make it happen.
1-1, hopefully make it 2-1, if not better, on today's show. Guys, welcome into the chat. We got Big Ragoo from the state of Florida. Welcome in, Big Ragoo.
Good morning, guys. Ready to rock and roll with these games today. There's a lot of great games that are going to be on TV for viewing pleasure, and a lot of great games that we're going to break down to make some money on. So let's get at it.
Absolutely. I don't know about you. I'm excited for this 12 o'clock kickoff that we'll be right up to. And then we got 2 big games to go over. And then open mic section. We're going to just open it up to any games everybody wants to talk about, what bets we're placing. And then, of course, best bets at the end. And Ian Cameron on Twitter at Babano. Welcome in. Happy Saturday morning, bud.
Happy Saturday morning, Drew, Big Boss, Big Ragoo. We're ready for another Saturday of college football. Let's get down to business. Let's get to work.
Let's get after it, guys. And guys in the chat box, Miami boy, Brandon Lugo, Ron Fig, Sean Mendez, Paco Healy. We are here every Saturday morning throughout college football season. This is the closing line, 11 a.m. Eastern time, breaking down the big games, breaking down pretty much the whole card on the slate. And we get to start off with the 2 big boys. We can start 3:30 Eastern, Texas A&M and Clemson. This will be on ABC. Looking at SBR odds right now, seeing 63 to 64 as the total. And this number's shifting a little bit here. It was 18.5. Now we're seeing it as low as 16.5 at Pinnacle. Prevailing number seems to be about 17. That's Clemson favored at home. This is the SEC versus the ACC, Ian. Big spot here. Arguably Clemson's toughest opponent of the whole season. You think Texas A&M has a shot here, Ian?
Yeah, maybe Clemson's toughest opponent of the season, and they're laying 17 points or in that vicinity. It tells you just how much the betting markets respect Clemson right now. I have no interest in stepping in Clemson's way, and I feel that way about Clemson. I feel that way about Alabama. These top of the rotation teams in college football, the best of the best, so to speak. You know, I try not to go against them. Now, and because they have proven they can still be ATS moneymakers. The ATS records of these kind of teams, Clemson and Alabama, they've been very good in recent years. And Kellen Mond moved the football very well against Clemson's defense last year. He did. Even though they lost that game barely, he had success moving it. He's a capable enough quarterback. He's still a mistake-prone quarterback, though, and that still bothers me. Decision-making gets away from him at times. I do think A&M will have success offensively, though, a little bit here today in this game. I think the Aggies have a top 20, top 25 offensive line in the entire country, and they're going up against a Clemson defensive line that still talented. They still reload 4 5-star recruits. I understand that, but you still lost a ton of your key personnel last year. Many of those guys drafted first round of the NFL draft. They didn't feel the effects of those losses last week against a totally rebuilding Georgia Tech offense, going through one of the most difficult transitions you could go through in the country, from a triple option to a pro spread hybrid offense under Jeff Collins. That transition is difficult. They're going to be tested, that defensive front, today, because A&M's O-line is big. It's got size. And that ability to block and open up holes for the ground game and give them on time. So I think A&M will move the ball a little bit, and I think Clemson will, because I think Trevor Lawrence, you look at it, they scored in the 40s still against Georgia Tech last week, and it wasn't even Lawrence's best game. He had a couple interceptions, wasn't taking care of the football quite as well, a little bit inaccurate. I think ETN will have a big day running it. You got to love T. Higgins, the receiver. He was excellent last week. He's going to be a big playmaker for Lawrence moving forward, and I've still got doubts about A&M's defense, because the linebacking core and the secondary in particular is a little inexperienced going into this game today. When you look at it, they weren't tested by Texas State last week. Brand new offense, brand new scheme. They go from slow, snail-paced offense to air raid, faster-paced. And Texas State looked like they had no grasp of that offense yet last week against A&M. This is a big step up in class for their defense. I played the total only in this game. I played it over. 61.5 is the number I have in my pocket. It's up to 63.5 now. But again, I think both teams offensively will have a good day of it, and I think we'll see some points here.
All right, looking towards the over. We got Big Ragoo down in the state of Florida, Texas A&M versus Clemson. In terms of the day slate, anyway, biggest game on the card. Big Ragoo, you interested in getting involved in this matchup?
I had some early looks at this game, and what's really interesting is the way the line has kind of come down. But Clemson is definitely not a team that I would want to step in front of. But you know what? I might get involved in this maybe right around game time. I like a lot of the breakdowns that Ian is spot on about. I talked about this also the other night where, both quarterbacks started off a little shaky this season. Not their best looks, but both quarterbacks are very, very, very talented. Last year, the look for Clemson was they went in there first time starting. His first start on TV was Lawrence. First big game for him, and he kind of shook it up late in the fourth quarter. The key for me in this game is going to be the Clemson offensive line versus the defensive line on Texas A&M side. But Texas A&M side is a little weak in the secondary. I think Lawrence, I think they're going to kind of expose that, behind the little short pass, behind the middle linebacking zone. I think they might set the run up with the pass here. And if that happens, then look for Adian to have a big day today. Last week he ran for over 200 yards. That was a solid look, even though it was Georgia Tech. And there's some key offensive weapons that they have. They're loaded with wide receivers. A&M is no slouch either. They did play that 2-point game back at A&M, but now they travel to Clemson at Death Valley. And this line is 16.5 for a reason. If it was going to be that close of a game, the odds makers would have made that adjustment. So either way, I don't think it's going to be a game that's going to be a close game. I either think Clemson's either going to blow them out or it's going to go the other way. A&M's going to have their way with them if they get their way. So I would lean Clemson in this game, lay in the 16.5 points.
Interesting. Big Ragoo, volatile game, it sounds like. Either Clemson, and that's what you're leaning towards, laying the points. But if Texas A&M is sticking with them, they might go into Clemson and come out victorious, it sounds like. So good breakdown there, Big Ragoo. And DJ Big Boss from the state of California. We got a shout out to Ski Prophet, who's also in the state of California, saying he just woke up just for the show and then going back to sleep. We always appreciate it, Ski Prophet. So welcome in, man, and good morning to you. DJ Big Boss, what are you thinking here? Texas A&M versus Clemson. We got the SEC and the ACC showdown, man.
Hey, I say throw me in the smoke, Drew. This game right here, man, it's a tough game. And, as cappers, we got to jump in there and we got to get busy. Now, we can't let the line makers do all the work for us, but sometimes that does come in handy. But looking at these two teams, now I was on Clemson, right, first half minus 23. And what I noticed from watching the game with Clemson is that they're not a fast-paced offense. They try to get organized, but the quarterback over there, I'm not sold on that guy all the way yet, man. I've seen him do some rookie mistakes. I see, this is the second year. Like when you come off the bench and you come in, you listening to the coach and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing on the field, because you're a little timid and scared and you cool with the guidance. But after the media pumps you up and you come back and this, that, and the other, that affects guys in different ways. And this guy still hasn't proved himself 100% to me. So I'm excited about Clemson's defense. The defense, what I noticed back at the spring game is that not only are they aggressive in the front seven, but they got depth over there too. I see them pull off a whole line and put in a whole nother line and had the same intensity. So they got depth over there on the defensive line. And if you watch Clemson in the past, they played under games in big games. Last year they played this team right here. It was 26-28 in the last game between these two. And I don't know how we just gonna look past that and they giving them 16. But it was a close game last year. But all the games that Clemson plays against tough opponents, they score about 20, 27 points for the win. So they usually stay kind of under the game. Every now and then they get tested and they go up. But this spot right here I don't think it's going to come down to that, because here you go, SEC, ACC, and SEC always brings size with them. They bring all that size, them big linemen and all that good stuff, and that's what Texas A&M has to offer this year. They have the big linemen. They can run the ball a little bit. I kind of like the offense because of the quarterback. He's a really good leader. Like, he has his troops under his hand. You know, they follow his. I didn't see too much miscommunication. I seen a very organized offense in Texas A&M. And coming into big games like this, coaches got to slow it down. You got to play to your strengths. And those guys are big. It's going to be a nice battle in the trenches right here. But I'm like Ian, you know what I'm saying? I had to go over to the total side, because picking the side and the line, and you know, it's just too much. You know, I don't want to get beat taking Texas A&M by 16 points, not at all. And I like the total on this one, but I'm a little opposite of my guy Babano. I like the under in this game. I seen it as high as 64. I think it opened up at 61. So I mean, the public pushed it up a little bit. And if you want to let the line setters do the work, then the line setters put it kind of low. So in this one, I like the under right there.
Good stuff, DJ Big Boss. And that's what makes a market. Ian liking the over, DJ Big Boss liking the under. You're right. It has bumped up from 61 up to 64 right now. And on SBR odds, we're seeing anywhere from low water market bookmakers 63. And we are seeing a 64 at Bet Online. So you can get a full point difference by shopping around, having multiple sports books, something I definitely recommend. Great breakdowns, guys. And I could just finish it up here with Texas A&M Clemson. I'm looking towards the Aggies here. A couple reasons why. One, I do think their defense is strong enough not to get pushed around by Clemson up front. Also, like DJ Big Boss said, quarterback position. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is very, very good. He does make mistakes, though. He is still young, still a sophomore, true sophomore there. And Kellen Mond, on the other hand, I think he's underrated. He's accurate down the field. He has 3 wide receivers, in my opinion, have a chance to be playing on Sundays. And DJ Big Boss also brought up the fact just last year it was 28-26. That was the closest game Clemson had all season long. And this was a Clemson team that had 3 defensive linemen drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. All 3 of those guys are gone. Actually, all 4 starting defensive linemen are gone. Granted, they do reload up front, but still, it's unproven. I think that Texas A&M does have the horses to go into Death Valley, South Carolina, and has a puncher's chance at coming out with a victory. I personally bet Texas A&M plus 18. We're seeing 16.5 and 17 right now before game time. I think I'm going to take a shot on the money line as well. Kind of reminds me of a few years ago with Johnny Manziel and company going into Tuscaloosa and lightning in a bottle coming out with a victory. I could see that same. I kind of smell it here today. So we'll see. I'm going to be taking a shot on the Aggies in Texas A&M. Just last year, DJ Big Boss also brought this up. Not only did they covered by 10 points last year against Clemson. So I think that's underrated as well. We got another big matchup here, guys. And we appreciate everybody coming in Saturday morning, each and every Saturday morning here on the SBR YouTube channel, 11 a.m. Eastern. This is the college football closing line, breaking down all the games from a betting perspective. Next game up, 7:30 Eastern start here. SEC versus Big 12 on ABC. We got now the numbers showing 6.5 or 7. That's LSU laying on the road in Austin, Texas. 57.5 the total. This is a big one, Big Ragoo. And if you want to start us off, man, we got the Tigers and the Longhorns, SEC, Big 12. A lot of opinion in this marketplace. We're seeing LSU from 4.5 bought up to now a full touchdown on the road. You agree with this market movement on the Tigers?
That's a strong move. I think it might be a little inflated, but I think it's going to be a razor sharp number for me to kind of get involved with. I might have a different look on the game as far as putting some action down, but let's talk about the 2 teams here for a minute. Texas last year, they finished up a solid campaign with 2 key victories over Oklahoma and Georgia in a bowl. Now that Georgia game, you got to take it with a grain of salt because they had high expectations, to play in the national championship game. So even so, you still got to give Texas credit for showing up playing the game that they did. So now we fast forward to present time, and we all know that Ellinger is a heck of a quarterback. He's a gamer, he's a team leader, and he breathes a life into the squad. And Herman, we all know about Herman and his numbers and what he does in the underdog role. There's no big secret there. He just coaches the heck up out of these kids. And when it comes game time, he has them prepared to play the game. Now, LSU, I'm used to LSU kind of being a very solid club early in the year, and maybe not so much in this high regard that they get, but usually by week 3, they start cracking up into the top 10 because they get some key victories and some tough games. But this year, they're kind of put up on a pedestal. They're saying that they have the outside chance to go get Bama this year. So they're big, they're strong, they're fast. And the quarterback, Joe Burrows, solid player. I mean, he opened up a lot of people's eyes last year with his style of play. But his play's even changing this year because now they're running an RPO-type offense. So they're really talented, they're really big. And I think the key thing for these guys going into this game, I mean, obviously preparation, number one, but I look back at their schedule, and they don't play a tough game. This is probably going to be their toughest game they play up until they see Florida like in mid-October. So they have a very favorable schedule. I mean, motivation is going to be on their side here. So they could be cracking, probably top 2, top 3 after this game if they have a really big game. But I think Texas probably was going to type of game that they're going to try to play a physical game up front with these guys on both sides, and I look for an under in this game. I think this game is not going to be one that's going to be an air raid type of game. I think it's just going to be a very physical game up front, and I would look under if anything in this game.
Looking towards the under in the big matchup tonight between LSU and Texas. That's big Ragoo. We got Donnie Rightside in the house, OG Wham as well. Guys, welcome in Molly Mall, Lance, Fred as well. We got DJ Big Boss, man. Are you interested in getting involved here, LSU versus Texas?
Absolutely. Throw me right back in the smoke, Drew. Another big game. I think this game might be, somewhere here there's blurred lines, and this one might be a little lopsided. You got this Texas team. I mean, winning this game for Texas would mean everything. For LSU, winning this game is just a part of the protocol, and somebody's got to get knocked off the horse in this one right here. And I like LSU because the team rallies behind the coach, man. That's very important in college football. A bunch of young guys. When they believe in the system, you get good results. So I've seen all the major sharp people lean on LSU this year for some exciting things, and I don't see them going nowhere. I mean, in a perfect world, I'd just be able to take them on the money line and go to sleep. But I got to give up some points in this one to play. It's not a full 7, but it's 7. So they play good offense and defense at LSU. This Texas team, I mean, we may just be riding off of what they did at the end of the year last year. I don't know, and then the sample size that we have of their game last week gives us nothing really to base it off of. So I don't know. The media, it's a lot of Longhorn fans in the world, like true Longhorn fans. I think they can move lines by themselves and stuff. But, I'm on LSU today. I'm just going to back it. I mean, I want to say it's almost blindly, but it's not really blindly. I took a good look at it, and I've been watching LSU for the last couple of years, and I watched Texas pretty well at the end of the year last year. And then the footage that I watched between the two teams, I don't see where LSU can't be dominant, especially with all the changes that they have in their system, and everything's working over there. All systems are go in LSU, and I'm going with LSU on this one.
Going with the Tigers, the Bayou Bengals in the showdown tonight on ABC. Ian, man, you interested in getting involved in Texas versus LSU tonight?
This is for years now, at least a couple of good years now. It's been almost a knee-jerk, automatic, don't even have to think twice about it. Tom Herman as an underdog, we back Texas. Or we back whichever team he's head coaching. I mean, the numbers don't lie. I mean, 13-2 against the spread. If you include Iowa State, Ohio State as a coordinator, 21-2 against the spread as an underdog all time. Tom Herman as a college football coach. However, I had a lot more trepidation going with Texas in this matchup here tonight. It wasn't just an automatic for me. Now that the numbers hit 7, I've got to bet Texas. It'll be a small half unit play, but now it's 7. I've got to take Texas. But here's my concern. The injuries keep mounting for this team. They came into the season with a banged up offensive line. They came into the season with cluster injuries at running back, came into the season with a lot of new starters and new faces on defense. 3 top tacklers were gone from last year's team. Both of their starting cornerbacks in the secondary from last year's team didn't return. And it just keeps on. And now you're down to just 1 running back on your roster going into tonight. Last I checked for this Texas team, battling injuries at that position. That's a concern. And I've got to say that me, like everybody else, was just incredibly impressed with LSU last week against Georgia Southern. It was just a tremendous performance. And Georgia Southern's not chopped liver. This isn't, this is a team that could be top half of the Sun Belt this year. They're not a great team by any stretch, but they're a good team, Georgia Southern, and should be a good team this year. And LSU's defense and speed on defense and their ability to blow up the line of scrimmage in the trenches was evident right from the beginning of that football game last week. Their ability to just great balance with the offense. It's only 1 game, but boy, this new look, revamped RPO offense looked very impressive. The balance of the pass to the run, using Joe Burrow as a mobile quarterback, a mobile threat, which they really didn't do a lot of last year. This is the exact same offense that he played in high school, that he was just all offseason. You couldn't read enough quotes from Joe Burrow saying, I love this offense. I'm comfortable in it. I'm familiar with it. I'm excited for what we're going to do this year on offense. And boy, they lived up to that. 5 touchdown passes for Burrow? 14 different players caught a football last. I mean, it was a very good offense. And, of course, you got the younger brother of Leonard Fournette, Leonard Fournette, now the running back there at LSU. Definitely an impact player in the running back spot for LSU. Very impressed with them. And Texas allowed Louisiana Tech to move the ball against them. I mean, it'll only show they got 21 points last week, but there were a couple missed field goals. There were a couple times they went for it on 4th down in Texas territory and didn't pick up the first down and turned it over on downs. That Texas defense looked shaky, a little bit last week. That's a concern for me tonight in this game against LSU. Look, now that I'm getting a much better number than where it was, I mean, it's been a flood of LSU money. People are just so impressed with what they saw last week. This opened, 4.5, up to 7 now in some spots. Now that it's hit the key number of 7, I got to grab Texas because I'll tell you what, Burrow's good. Brady, this is not your average Joes here at LSU, Burrow and Brady. These 2 guys, Brady bringing him in as a co-offensive coordinator is looking like a stroke of genius right now with the way LSU played on offense last week. But I'll tell you what about Sam Ehlinger. He carried this Texas team last week. I thought he was exceptional. I thought he played phenomenal. He's a tough kid. His competitive spirit is off the charts. That's a dangerous thing when you're talking about him at the quarterback spot for Texas, getting this kind of points at home. LSU's defense was lights out last week. It's going to be a little bit tougher for them this week. I don't love Texas anywhere close to the amount of I've loved Texas in this underdog role under Herman last year. I think that highly of LSU, but now that the numbers hit 7, I did get in on Texas for a small play, but I'm not overly confident on it.
All right, Longhorns plus a full touchdown here. Ian, great breakdown, man. And Ski Profit, back in what you said here, Herman has been an underdog 16 times since 2015, 13-2-1 against the spread, 4-0-1 at home. Those are some strong numbers there. Broke down the 2 big games on the slate, ranked teams versus ranked teams. And we got open mic section, guys, and we appreciate everyone joining us. If you could smash the like button, the thumbs up button, that will help us out. Open mic section, just kind of breaking it open to games we're interested in betting and why. If we could concentrate on the 12 o'clock slate, we got some guys in the chat box asking, make sure to get their bets in here. We got Vanderbilt, Purdue, Syracuse, Maryland, West Virginia, Missouri, Cincinnati, Ohio State. It is a pretty good noontime kickoff. Also an interesting handicap here, ODU versus Virginia Tech, one that I'm interested in. I think the Hokies kind of bounce back and cover a big number against ODU. The Monarchs who knocked them off last year. I think Virginia Tech comes out mad and beats a beaten down ODU team. They're fade city for me. So if you don't mind laying big numbers, that's one at 12 o'clock that I like. DJ Big Boss, you want to start us off with anything open mic section, what you're looking to bet, man?
Open mic section, I really I want to hear more from my guy Babano on this Tulsa and San Jose State game, which I thought was really interesting for Tulsa. And I watched the Mountain West well, and San Jose State is not really good. The only advantage in this game for San Jose State is that they're playing at home. If this was on the road for San Jose State, it'd be an automatic Tulsa for me. But I was watching Babano earlier in the week, and he spoke on this game right here, and I like what he was saying about that one. I think it's a good, interesting one for an open mic. I think it's a chance to cash in on some money that maybe the bookies are blind to right here. What you think, Babano?
Tulsa, San Jose State. I'll tell you what, I would only play Tulsa, and I think I did play them for a small bet. Tulsa here, laying less than a touchdown. They got a defense this year. Like, you look at the game last week against Michigan State. I watched that whole thing because I thought Michigan State's offense would be improved. Now, either Michigan State offense, they're full of bullshit, and they're not going to open this offense up like they talked about all offseason with Brian Lewerke, with a good offensive line returning, decent skill position talent. They talked about not running the football all the time, being more explosive. I didn't see much of that. But maybe I didn't see much of that because Tulsa's defense might be that good. I think that's part of the equation last week. I thought they were extremely impressive, the Golden Hurricane, on that side of the football. This could be one of Philip Montgomery's best defensive units that he's had since he took over as head coach at Tulsa. The offense is still a work in progress. Look, Tulsa's offense dropped off the map last year. It fell off a cliff, that Tulsa offense. It was dreadful last year. Didn't matter who they put in at quarterback. Seth Boomer, it was really Boomer bust it was for him last year at the quarterback spot for Tulsa. They think Zach Smith, the Baylor transfer, who's got the starting job this year, can be better. I agree with that. He wasn't great last week, but he was against one of the best defenses in the country, Michigan State, on the road. That's not the San Jose State defense. So I think there's an opportunity here for Tulsa's offense to rebound. And I know San Jose State's offense put up a lot of points last week. That was Northern Colorado, though. This is a much tougher defense here. One concern is the scheduling spot for Tulsa, DJ Big Boss. It's not a great one. They go from East Lansing. You got to go on the road now to the West Coast, playing San Jose in this game. That's a little worrisome for me. But to me, I still think this number's a little bit low, a little bit cheap on the road favorite, especially if Tulsa brings the defensive aptitude that they brought last week on the road at Michigan State. So at 6.5, I think it's worth a little bet on Tulsa tonight.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It went down to 6.5. I seen it at 7 for most of the week. It went down to 6.5. I think that's a golden nugget right here. I think that's a real good opportunity to hop on. I'm hopping on it too with you.
We got Barry Block in the chat saying, hey, Big Boss, I'm on Tulsa too. Nobody here in the Bay Area drinking that SJSU loser juice. So the Spartans not getting much love from the locals in California. But, hey, Big Ragoo, man, what about you? Open mic section. What games you want to bring up in terms of what you're looking to bet, man?
I had two. I flipped the coin on these two. First, I was looking at the Michigan Army game, which I backed Army last week. And I bet like a half a unit on Army, laying the 21, which is a lot of points for them with the style of offense they run. But Michigan, they're not a covering machine either. So that's one look I'm looking at. I'm looking at possibly taking Army for a plus to 22 points in that game. I think Army's got enough. I think they can muster enough firepower to kind of control the tempo of that game. It's got a low number for the total. It's too low for me to get involved with on the total side. But I think if you correlate the total and Army style of play, then the points make more sense than the total. So I think Army will kind of play keep away from Michigan in that regard. And Michigan, they're not a real prolific covering machine. Anything more than a touchdown for them, you really got to take a second look. But to get 4 scores to beat this Army squad, that's a huge number, I think. And I think Army's got enough ball control. And, Michigan's got talent. This is supposed to be their year. That team, the team that beats Ohio State, but they might have a little look ahead here. I'm not looking at the schedule, but do we know who they have next week? Who does Michigan play next week? Do we have any idea?
I don't have the schedule in front of me,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you.
check.
I'm happy you brought this game up, Big Ragoo, just because.
But that's my look, is the 22, taking the 22 because of the tempo of the game, and I think Michigan doesn't have enough firepower to beat them by 4 scores.
Yeah, it's an interesting handicap, and you bring up the fact, limited possessions, taking the points, that's kind of correlated. I like that style of bet. Also the fact, Army, it's the second longest winning streak in the nation right now. Only behind Clemson. They've put together a heck of a run here, and now they're catching 23, so it's worth Army here. We also got, Don?
Michigan's on bye. Michigan's on bye next week, so there will be no look ahead.
Okay.
So that's the good news. That's the good. And I'll say this quickly about Army, Michigan. I have a small play on Army too. I'm a little worried about it now because I just saw Army's offense not able to move the ball consistently against Rice's defense last week. And what did we just see from the Rice defense last night? They got absolutely shredded by Wake Forest in that game last night. That's a concern for me. And Army doesn't have many playmakers. So if they don't keep this game to within 2 touchdown spread for the duration and they lose touch and they fall down 21-24, there may not be any backdoor for Army here in this game. They're going to have to keep Michigan within arm's reach of them, or else they could be in a little bit of trouble going into this game. Jim Harbaugh talked all off season that they've prepped for Army way back starting in March, April. I mean, they've been working overtime, getting ready for Army, and knowing that they were going to face the triple option. What does that mean? Does it mean they're going to be able to shut it down? Perhaps, we'll see. But Harbaugh made sure he told the media multiple times in press conferences over the summer that we've been prepping for Army all summer for a very long time. We'll see if it pays dividends for the maize and blue today.
He better be careful, because if he don't stop him, he's going to look like a fool.
Yes.
We got Barry Block in the chat saying they couldn't score. That they had trouble with Rice, so going against Michigan is going to be a tough one. Also, Don Ricci here. I've noticed Army plays a lot of noon games in the past. I always felt that they are ready to go than some of their opponents, more ready to go than some of their opponents. The triple option seems to take a quarter or two to get used to, just a theory. Also, these Army guys used to waking up early, so the 12 o'clock kickoffs might not be a tough deal for them. Also, some guys in the chat talking about what Penn State versus Buffalo plus 30-ish points right now. I don't know. That seems pretty risky. It's an interesting handicap here. Buffalo lost a lot in the offseason. There's a huge talent gap here. And Penn State, as we know, say whatever you want about the head coach, he's not afraid to kind of press on that gas pedal. Ian, I know you brought that up before. Anything here on Buffalo, Penn State? And also, what do you want to bring up for open mic section, man?
Yeah, I mean, I would only look at Penn State in that game. Buffalo is a completely rebuilding squad. I know they got past Robert Morris last week, but it wasn't pretty by any stretch of the imagination. Their defense looks like it's lost a ton, and obviously you lose a quarterback like Tyree Jackson, who was excellent for that Bulls program under Lance Leopold. But it's going to be a tough season probably for Buffalo. And you're right about James Franklin, and Penn State looked impressive. I know it was Idaho. And Idaho, that's a miserable travel situation going from Idaho to State College last week to face that Penn State team. But Penn State just hung a huge number on Idaho. And James Franklin's a coach that's not afraid to run it up. He's a prick that way. I think he's a little bit of an asshole doing that. I've talked about that multiple times. I think it's ridiculous that he does some of the shit he does, like kicking a field goal when you're up 42-3 with 2 minutes to go, like he did in one game. Totally asinine BS Bush League move by James Franklin, in my opinion, but that's what he does. And it could certainly be beneficial for laying big points with Penn State against outmanned opposition. And unfortunately for Buffalo, they could be a little bit outmanned in this game. What am I looking at today? I'm going to give Rutgers a look, catching points against Iowa early on today. Rutgers has covered 5 straight as a double-digit underdog, all of them in Big Ten play last season. Iowa, from what I've read, has got some injuries coming into this game. Their starting left tackle's out. There's another O-line starter out. There's a couple guys out in the secondary going into this game. And that could matter here, because I think Rutgers might finally have a decent quarterback. It's not Art Satowski. It's not some of these, bad quarterbacks they've had in years past. They got the Texas Tech transfer in there now, McLean Carter. I thought he played well. It was UMass. I get it. Terrible team, terrible defense. But He looked solid. Not going to be as easy, obviously, in Iowa City against Iowa, but Iowa's got the Iowa State rivalry game coming up next week on tap, and you talk about Kirk Ferentz in a point spread role that he hasn't been good in. How about 0-7 ATS last 7 tries laying 17 or more in a game? That's Iowa. 0-7 against the number their last 7 tries laying more than 17 points or more in a football game. It's one of those ugly underdogs where I think if Rutgers can compete, I think they got the offense. Even if they fall behind, they can punch in a score late and get inside the number. Iowa is still, to this day, and I know Nate Stanley's improved at the quarterback spot. They've got maybe a little bit more explosiveness than they've had in the past, but they still are a conservative play-calling offense under Ferentz. I still have trouble laying these kind of points with Iowa, and their results as 17-point favorites or more proves that. So I like Rutgers a little bit there, plus 18.5 is the current number there. I talked about this game, and it's Big Ragoo's Florida State Seminoles earlier in the week with Jimmy on his show. I bet this thing over the total early in the week. It's 65.5 now. It's gone up, but I still think you can get there with this game over the total. I mean, Florida State's offense will be fine. I know they got shut down in the second half by Boise last week. Boise's got a good defense. Look what they did last night in the second half against Marshall in that game. I think James... Yeah, exactly. I think they will. They'll move the ball today. Monroe lost a lot on defense last year. Blackman, Cam Akers, the running back. I think they got good skill position weapons at wide receiver, better offensive line against an undersized ULM defense. I think Florida State moves the ball, and they were going at a blazing fast tempo and pace under Kendall Briles in that game last week. On the flip side, though, I'm not sold on Florida State's defense, and their defense was on the field for over 100 snaps last week against Boise State. Willie Taggart complaining that we were dehydrated on defense. That could be a hangover effect coming into this game. When you're on the field for that many plays and that kind of heat and humidity, and now you're playing in that same heat and humidity today, you could be a fatigued, worn down physically defense going into this game if you're Florida State. And the ULM team under Matt Viator, the head coach, has done a decent job there. They got a senior quarterback in Caleb Evans, multiple year starter, can play, can move the football, I think, against that Florida State defense, which, again, I'm not quite sold on just yet. So this total opened at 61. It skyrocketed up, and I totally get why. I think we'll see points there in Tallahassee today.
Great point on the breakdown of ULM as well. Matt Viator, he built the program in the FCS, then moved over to ULM. I think he's done a great job building that program. Not the easiest place to recruit to. That's what kept me off of it, because I was looking to bet Florida State in a bounce back as well. Ian, good point there. We got Anthony in the chat saying Windsor local here, 20 minutes from the big house. I'm telling you, Michigan didn't care about last week. They cared about Army, and they got a bye right after today. Michigan rolls. And actually, Anthony, that's a great point. That's what kept me off of betting Army. I was looking towards Army, but the fact that I read a couple articles that they've actually been preparing for this option for multiple weeks, not just for the normal 1 week there. So great point there, and good stuff to bring into if you are betting the Army-Michigan game. Penn State versus Buffalo. Couple points here, and that they lost a lot, absolutely, and Penn State, really looks to roll. So laying a number there in the early games might be worth a look. We also got some questions here. Ski Profit bringing up some a big game here on the 12 noon slate, guys. Syracuse and Maryland. I keep thinking it's a conference game seeing Syracuse and Maryland, but really it's the ACC versus the Big Ten. We got Maryland minus 158 the total. This is an interesting, fascinating handicap in the sense I think Syracuse defensive line really gets after the quarterback Jackson for Maryland. I've never really been sold on them. The accuracy issues at Virginia Tech. Granted, Maryland put up a lot of points, not really against a lot of competition. Syracuse did shut out Liberty. I think Liberty has a good offense. So I would look towards Syracuse here. I bet them personally at the +2 number. We're seeing +1 or +1.5 right now. That game going off in under 20 minutes, 12 noon kickoff here. Is there any other games, Ian, you wanted to bring up in the 12 noon slate, or DJ Big Boss Big Ragoo, before we go down to Moneyline underdog slate?
I don't have anything else. 12 o'clock.
Okay, all good, Ian?
No, actually, I'm with you on Syracuse. Especially at the opener, I was not interested. But then there was a flip of favorites. Maryland almost got to -3 at one point. They were -2.5 earlier in the week. I don't get all the Maryland love. I know but they pummeled Howard last week, 70-0. We're just going to go guns blazing and all just, wow, look at this Maryland team. I got to see them play a real team.
Yeah, that was a talk all week. We talked
Yeah.
early in the week on Jimmy's show about like around Tuesday, Wednesday. We're like, what's going on with this Maryland game? I mean, how come the line's moving the other way? And Teddy brought up a point that he had said that Vegas is not really high on DeVito as a quarterback for Syracuse. That's the look. That's the word on the street. So this is a team that went toe to toe with Clemson twice the last 2 years, and now all of a sudden they're falling out of favor. I know Eric Dungy's gone, so he was a big integral part of the offense. So I guess it's a wait and see type of thing for them, more or less.
Yeah, I will say this: the jury may be out. There may be some truth to that about Tommy DeVito. The sentiment that maybe he's not up to task to be starting quarterback, because he was not great last week at all, in my opinion. Actually, it was Syracuse defense that pitched a shutout against Liberty that allowed them to get the cover. But that offense was not crisp. And when you only put up 24 points, playing at the extreme tempo that you do, that's not a great offensive performance, and we didn't see that from Syracuse last week with Tommy DeVito at the quarterback spot. However, I still think the guy is capable. We're going to have to see. But Drew mentioned Josh Jackson, not being sold on him. It's true. I mean, he's going to have to show me. And this Syracuse defense, it was really good last year. It was much improved last year. They could be just as good, if not better than that this year. I really like that Syracuse defense, the way they played last year, the way they played last week against Liberty, completely shut down the Liberty Flames offensively in that game. It's tough because the total's 58. There's been hint about the wind that might impact it. The Dorian's past the Maryland area, but the problem with betting under, even though I do have question marks about both of these offenses, both teams play fast. Maryland's really sped up the tempo this season under Mike Locksley. They're playing at a much faster clip. We know that's what you get from Dino Babers and the Syracuse team. I don't like betting unders in the 50s when I know both teams are going to be playing extremely fast. And that's what we're going to have here in this game. You're going to need a lot of bad execution, a lot of red zone inefficiency, I think, in the end, to keep this game under the total with the pace you're going to get from both Syracuse and Maryland and a total in the 50s.
Great stuff there, guys. And just to finish it off on the 12 o'clock games, looking at Vanderbilt, Purdue, we got SEC Big Ten. Seeing Purdue laying 755.5 the total. Purdue, just the -7 number here. I think it's kind of off. I look towards Vanderbilt, and granted, I lost to my best bet. Vanderbilt plus the points, kind of going back as well, is something I always kind of pump the brakes on. I just think that, a tough bunch here, good defense, Riley Neal and company at the quarterback position can throw the ball down the field. And Purdue, I'm just not sold on Purdue winning by margin against Vanderbilt in the early slate. So that's one I wanted to bring up, guys. We do have the Moneyline underdog segment and best bets coming up. DJ Big Boss, we got to get you in here, man. Is there a Moneyline underdog you're looking at betting today?
Woo, yes. And this is for my people out in the West in this USC Stanford game we got going on. Now, it's not much of a Moneyline underdog. It's about -3, so it's giving up about +135. And the dog here is Stanford. Now, both teams' quarterbacks were injured last week. This is the backup bowl right here. Now, Stanford comes in with Davis Mills. He's a junior. And what I noticed from watching the Stanford tape is the quarterback role in the team at Stanford is not just to be chunking the ball downfield or something crazy. He's kind of a facilitator. So he should do well in that spot. And I like that for Stanford. Stanford's a decent team. When I seen USC last week, I seen a lot of sloppy play. Only thing they really have solid over there is that defensive line. So Stanford runs a lot of unbalance, which is double tights, sometimes double a tight end and two tight ends on the other side. But when you run the double tight or jumbo package, you spread out the defensive line. So USC shouldn't be as effective on the defensive line there. As a matter of fact, some of those linebackers, some of those guys in the secondary, they got to come up a little bit in the jumbo package, or they're just going to run right up the middle. So I think that's a good that'll knock some of the fire out of USC. And USC, they backup quarterback is Keaton Slovis. Now this guy is an interesting guy. Now when he came in last week, I don't think he scored not 1 point, but the guy he's not that good. He couldn't throw the ball very well. But the reason, I don't know why USC is minus 3 points. Maybe it's just the home thing right there. But after JT Daniels went out, USC looked sunken. But only thing held them in the game was their defense, and they were already up a good amount of points. So JT Daniels was the big role in USC's offense this year. To lose him at this point is a way major blow than to lose the guy over there at Stanford. So I'm taking Stanford on the money line right here. It's going to be a mismatch game, probably going to be low scoring as well, which the line lets you know it's going to be low, but it's a little too low to mess with because USC's ideal offense right now would be to pass the ball a lot, but I don't think they're going to be able to do that. They're going to rely on the run. They had to rely on the run in the last week's game. The run was what did a lot of the work for them. JT Daniels only threw one good bomb that connected, that got him in goal line. They still had to run the ball in from there. So USC is a little bit active with the run. This Stanford team, they play 4 quarters. They got good defense. They got a good scheme on offense to settle down SC's defense. And the secondary at SC, they're over there still making mistakes. So I like Stanford as my dog. That's official this year. This week.
Going with the Cardinal in the Pac-12 out in California. Good stuff from DJ Big Boss. Big Ragoo, what about you, man? Any money line underdogs you're looking at today?
I probably have the smallest money line that you could possibly have on earth.
Hey,
I think
it counts, man.
Yeah, but here's a look. I like the look on the game, period. So whether it falls, and I said, well, I can use that for my money line play technically. But anyways, there's probably not a whole lot of attention going on this game, and I think you looked at it when I put it in the flow bag chat the other day. Arkansas State versus UNLV.
Yeah.
UNLV is going to host Arkansas State. UNLV beat up on Utah State last week, and I think they need them in their conference, or they need to move over to their conference because that's the only team they seem like they could beat. In 20 years, this team hasn't started off 2-0 against that, in the last 20 years. And Sanchez, he's a local hero, high school hero turned head coach at that program. Gorman Bishop, a lot of talent out of that area, but I think he's in above over his head still. And flip the other side, you got an Arkansas State team that took SMU down to the wire. They had pretty good play there. They lost 37-30, and it was a losing effort. Logan Bonner, he had 324 yards and 4 touchdown passes, but they lacked a serious running game early in the game, and that was probably the big difference for them. So they're going to really focus on the run this week. Now, UNLV's defense, I think that's a good matchup for them because their defensive line isn't as strong against the Arkansas State offensive line. But there's an underlying factor that really plays into college football. It's called motivation. And the short number, like I said, opened up at 2.5, and I think it's down to 1, maybe even pick them by now. Who knows? But Coach Blake Anderson's wife had been sick. And during that game, the game last week, I guess right before the game, she had passed on. And so the coach stood with the team and coached that game out. And he's not going to be there this week. And there's a real strong sentiment in the locker room for this game, for them to go out and really come out really, really strong and win this game for the coach and the school. So everybody's so focused on this game, and I think it's indicative of the line move. So for me, this is probably going to be a 2-unit play for me today. I'm going to take Arkansas State for 2 units, and that's going to be my money line play of the day.
Arkansas State, the Red Wolves, plus the money line in that one. They are at UNLV. That is a late night game, 10 p.m. Eastern, Sunbelt versus Mountain West from Big Ragoo. And Ian, is there anything else you want to throw out in this segment, man?
You know what? It's a moneyline underdog that I'm looking down the board, seeing what's a good one that I think is particularly live today. Even in the early stages of the slate, an ugly one might be Akron as a home underdog against UAB because UAB was horrible last week.
Yeah.
They barely beat an FCS team. They were not at all impressive in doing so. Now, I'm not going to say Akron, was any good either. They got blown out by Illinois. That's a bad sign. But UAB is a more than touchdown road favorite here. And I think the Blazers and Bill Clark's done an amazing job coaching that program since they returned to the FBS ranks. But the talent is way down, I think, on that team this year. They lost a lot on defense. Their offense, to me, looks a little bit shaky. Now they got to go on the road and lay these kind of points to Akron here. Akron, I would even skip taking the points with Akron. I would just, take a chance with them on that money line. The price is nice, around plus 250, plus 260 with Akron on the money line. To me, it just looks like you can take Akron on the money line against a team in UAB that just barely beat, in a very unimpressive fashion, a middle-of-the-pack FCS team a week ago. Akron as a home dog might be able to win that game outright. Just as from a price standpoint, there might be some value there.
Yeah, Akron versus UAB, something only a sports bettor can love. I like it.
Yes,
Ian.
exactly.
What is that, 9 points that game? I think it's 9, isn't it?
Yeah, it was 9. It's down to 8,
Yeah.
but a great money line price there on that.
Yeah.
And
I
again,
like that
UAB,
look.
UAB was not at all impressive last week, not in the least.
No, and Tom Arthur in his first year as the Akron head coach, D3 legend at quarterback. We got Tulane and Auburn, a game I wanted to bring up for my money line play. We got 51.5, Auburn minus 17. Obviously, a lot of people out there watch the Auburn-Oregon game. I think Auburn's passing game is in trouble. It's going to it needs to improve a lot getting into SEC play. I think they're going to be up against it. I didn't see a lot of talent from the wide receiver position going up against Willie Fritz and what he's built at Tulane. Keep in mind, guys, per capita, the state of Louisiana, in terms of recruiting, one of, if not the best, depending on the year. And Tulane, kind of second to LSU. They can get a lot of recruits. Willie Fritz has done a great job on the recruiting angle. I don't think they're going to be getting pushed around too much with that Auburn defensive line. And the quarterback transfer from LSU, McMillan, he looked very good against FIU. I think Tulane has a puncher's chance here. I like Tulane plus the points to stay close in Jordan Hare, kind of a letdown situation for Auburn. Freshman quarterback that I don't think looked very good at all. Mainstream media kind of focusing in on that last drive, but really, before that, I don't think he looked good. So I think Tulane here, a plus 600 money line ticket might be worth it. Granted, we already talked about the Texas A&M game. That's something I'm invested in personally, so I didn't want to bring that up kind of twice in the show. But in terms of money line underdogs, there's a couple kind of coming off the board at me. We also got best bets guys coming up. Did want to bring up a couple of the degenerate specials at the end here. It's a huge 10 p.m. Eastern slate. Plus, we got Hawaii playing at home. But does anybody have a best bet out there for the 12 noon kickoffs that we need to get out right now?
Oh, no, not me.
I'm good. Just the one best bet at the end of the show for me.
Okay, good stuff, guys. Oregon State, Hawaii at home. Hawaii minus 6.5, 77 the total. Some guys in the chat box bringing up there might be wind side to side in this one. Obviously, the possessions are going to be there. Oregon State can really push the tempo. Hawaii now laying 6.5. They already beat a Pac-12 team week 0, getting a week off. I like them again here, under a touchdown. The Rainbow Warriors. If you're looking for that get-back game, late night action, that's the one I would bring up. Ian, did you want to bring up anything here on the late night slate? Stanford, USC, Cal, Washington, Minnesota, Fresno State. We talked about the UNLV, Arkansas State, and then, of course, the Hawaii game. Anything here for the get-back stuff?
Yeah, now that the total in Cal Washington is 42.5, that's extremely low for college football. The over's kind of now. I know Cal's not an over team; they're not a good offense, and they're a pretty damn good defense. But I don't know if that defense is quite going to be as good as they've been the last couple of years under Wilcox. And I've said this many times: Washington, Jake Eason's going to make you forget about Jake Browning in a split second with how good this guy can be at the quarterback spot. I think he's going to be a big upgrade from Browning. I think Washington's going to have a lot more explosiveness on offense here. Remember, Cal beat Washington last year, so it's also a revenge game here for the Huskies in this game. It's tough to bet against Cal as a double-digit dog because they seem to hang around in a lot of games, but I'm not looking to go against Washington. With that total now down to 42.5, maybe some value to fade the under move and look over the top, because I do think that Washington offense is really going to be taking some steps forward this year with Eason at the quarterback spot. You mentioned Oregon State, Hawaii. Laying points with Hawaii is dicey. It can be dicey.
Yeah.
Because their defense can be a little bit shaky. But this is the one time I'm going to say, you know what, Hawaii? I'm going to trust you tonight laying points. I'm going to lay the 6.5 because I don't know where Oregon State gets the stops. This defense is hideous. The secondary is a mess. They can't stop the run. They have no pass rush whatsoever. It's everything bad about a defense, and we saw it against Oklahoma State. For that team last week. I don't know how they're going to stop Hawaii here in this game. And they have two quarterbacks. You know, McDonald got into some interception issues against Arizona. No problem. We put Siobhan Cordero in instead. He came in and he moved the football very well. So that's the nice problem to have if you're Nick Rolovich. You got two quarterbacks that can play. I don't know where the stops come from Oregon State, but Oregon State can move the ball. You have a senior quarterback in Jake Luton. That running back for them that's returning, it was over 1,000-yard rusher last year. He could pose some problems for this Hawaii defense. The wind, I'm going to have to look into that more, but I can tell you what, I don't want the under in this game. I know it's 77. It's a very, very high total, but I'm looking Hawaii minus 6.5 in the over in that late night, midnight special.
Good stuff, Ian Cameron. DJ Big Boss, no, you're out there on the West Coast, man. Anything on these West Coast games? And also, we got to get our best bets out there coming up to kickoff. Just 2 minutes till 12 noon Eastern kickoff here, man. What you got for best bets, DJ Big Boss?
My best bet, well, I'm also endorsing that Hawaii bet Babano has right there. I really like McDonald. I think McDonald might be one of the top quarterbacks in the Mountain West at the end of the day. I like Hawaii playing on the island all the time on the island. They always have an edge there. I heard some stuff in the chat that they got some bad weather going on over there. Could affect the air raid on both of them. That was from our guy Barry in the chat. Appreciate that right there. But, you know, like my guy Don Ricci said, when it comes to the weather, you got to ride it out and keep checking all day. You know, it's a long time till that game starts off tonight. So we got plenty of time to adjust to the weather, but I really like McDonald. And then when you look at the two defenses, you put the two defenses together. I like the Hawaii front four way better than I like Oregon State's total defense. So I think we have more opportunity, a lot of value with this Hawaii team on the island. I'm taking it at the 6.5. But are we going in the best bets, Drew?
We're heading right now.
Best bets.
Yeah,
best bets. Yeah, we got to wrap this sucker up. Yep.
Okay, my best bet right here is Ole Miss. The under in the Ole Miss game against Arkansas. Now, Ole Miss had great defense. They're showing improvement on defense right now. So my best bet right here is the under 50 in the Ole Miss game versus Arkansas.
Under 50, Ole Miss versus Arkansas, SEC West. And I want to apologize to everybody out there. My best bet last week was on Hottie Toddy plus 4.5. We were winning at the end of the game, and a safety was the thing that pushed it from 3 to 5. We lost by 0.5 point to Memphis. That was one of the worst beats, definitely the worst beat I have had this season. So hopefully DJ Big Boss with his best bet on Ole Miss under 50 recoups some of that. We got Big Ragoo from the state of Florida. Big Ragoo, what do you got for best bets, buddy?
My best bet staying in the Florida today, guys. I'm looking at UNC Miami. Miami coming off a layoff. First of all, shout out to our guy Sergio from Pembroke Pines. He and I talked about this game last night, and we both love it. Miami coming off the bye against Sam Howell. Sam Howell, a young quarterback. Now, Williams is a young quarterback also for Miami, but they had their mix-up when they played at the Gators down in Orlando 2 weeks ago. Miami coming off the bye, prepping for this game. UNC coming off cloud nine. They're going to get caught at home. Miami gets the job done, plain and simple. No explanation. Lay the wood with Miami and collect your money at the end of the game.
Miami Hurricanes. I like it, Big Ragoo. I'm with you, man. I think the Canes roll today. And we got Ian Cameron at Babano on Twitter. What do you got for best bets, man?
Yeah, and if you watched that game last week, South Carolina, North Carolina, that was every bit South Carolina losing that game as it was North Carolina winning it. They made a bunch of mistakes. Bentley was horrible in the second half. So I agree. Actually, it took Miami. I think it got down to as low as 4 even at one point. And I said, it's come down too low. I agree totally with that look toward the Canes laying just a short amount of points on the road there. My best bet early in the week definitely would have been Monroe, Florida State over the total, but I don't like doing that now. It's 65.5. It's 4.5 points worse of the number. So I'm going to go something else for best bet. Another total, another over. We're going to look toward the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers and the Florida International Golden Panthers over 56 in this game. Bounce back for FIU's offense. I'm willing to forgive them for only putting up 14 points last week against a very, very good Tulane defense. And by the way, I agree with Drew on Tulane plus the points there against Auburn as well. That's one of my plays too today. They'll be better this week. James Morgan, senior quarterback. I still like their O-line. And I don't like the Western Kentucky defense. We saw Western Kentucky last week outright loss to FCS Central Arkansas, giving up 35 points and 500 yards of offense to Central Arkansas in that game for Western Kentucky's defense. I think this is a big bounce back game for FIU offensively. They were victimized by a lot of drop passes last week, too, by their receivers against Tulane. Those are correctable mistakes, corrections I expect them to make going into this game. On the flip side, Tyson Helton's the first-year head coach for Western Kentucky. They're going much faster. They're trying to throw the ball all around. They're trying to open up the offense because really Mike Sanford, under his tutelage as the head coach, this Western Kentucky offense took a big step back. They're trying to rev it up again. I thought the offense was solid last week. Stephen Duncan, the quarterback, a little erratic with interceptions, but hey, that could also lead to points for FIU in this game. I think they'll move the ball a little bit. FIU's defense got shredded last week by Tulane. 500 yards themselves they allowed to the Tulane Green Wave in that game. So I think you get two suspect defenses, two capable offenses. We'll go over the total with FIU WKU for best bet.
All right, FIU, WKU over 56 for Ian Cameron. Big Ragoo on Miami. Low water mark is -5 right now on SBR odds. DJ Big Boss, Ole Miss, Arkansas under 50. And I'll finish it up with Texas A&M +17 against Clemson. For DJ Big Boss, Big Ragoo, Ian Cameron, I am Drew Martin. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll be back next week, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Best of luck with your bets.
Good luck, everybody.